Oh, I think it's definitely still un-American. I think that's pretty much one of the most un-American things that you can do. I mean, our Statue of Liberty says, "Give me your tired, your poor masses yearning to breathe free." It's not asking for, you know, it's not, there's no religious test on that Statue of Liberty. So not only obviously, I mean, as we've seen in the past week, is it un-American? It's unconstitutional to target a religious group, and it doesn't send the right message about what we are as a country, who we are as a country, since our founding has, um, to use a term that Ronald Reagan used, that shining city on a hill. And there's a lot of truth to that. We get the best people from the rest of the world. They want to come here. They want to study in our universities. They want to work in our universities. They want to work in our companies. They want to found our companies. Steve Jobs' father was from Syria, was a Syrian migrant. He wouldn't be allowed to come here under this ban. How ridiculous is that? And then we don't have Apple. So, um, yeah, and I don't think it makes America more safe at all. I think any ban, especially that gets this much publicity, makes us far less safe, because then we become what the terrorists and the all the people who, well, the few people, maybe, I don't know, there aren't that many. There aren't as many people as that hate us as everyone probably thinks. But the people that hate us are going to hate us more because we're excluding, and we're, segregating, and we're calling people out for their religion, and we're making it an us versus them proposition. And I think that that's one of the true lessons from that I was so proud of Obama for, is he would constantly um, go against that, and be just super inclusive, and remind everyone that our nation is built on immigrants from all over the world, and that's how we're going to be strong moving forward. And walling ourselves off is not how we're going to make ourselves safe. That's a temporary, very short term solution and mindset that will not is not how we want to go in the 21st century. I'm sympathetic to the argument that, I mean, a woman in San Francisco, I think she was in her 20s, was on a pier, I think with her father, and she was murdered by an illegal immigrant. And those are the types of cases that Donald Trump and the Republicans like to talk about. And there's obviously truth in that. And so if we're going to try to ban or round up, as we've seen in the last few days, criminals, obviously that will make America safer, but that's not some new policy. I mean, that's, as I understand it, that's been the policy of the Obama administration in the United States for a long time. If you're a criminal, if you're dangerous, we're gonna vet you and we're gonna catch you and not let you in. And if you're here and you're, for lack undocumented, then you're going to be sent away if you do something that breaks the law, especially in a violent way. So I have not seen anything near convincing evidence that this ban of these 7 Muslim countries will be effective at all.
Yeah, and it's really sad because we're also supposed to be freedom of religion, right? So if someone's banning Muslims, what doesn't give them the right that they're going to start doing other religions? And that's not freedom of religion anymore. Because now you're saying, oh, you can't come here. And it's not saying you can't practice. But at the same time, it's saying, well, if you're a Muslim, you can't come here. It's ridiculous. But what about the Muslims that are already here? You're all going to be shipped out because I'm Muslim. I'm American. So, I don't, it's, I don't know what to say about it. It's really, really sad how far down um, the the politic and everything has gone. As you said, We used to be a land of hope, a land of opportunity, a land of freedom. People would come here to escape their country because they couldn't do anything. They would come here to feel free, to do what they want to do. And now we're just putting a wall between us and other people, and that's not good. And you'll just have, and he might even try rewriting everything, which is really sad. And I don't know, it's really ridiculous what's going on now, and banning Muslims especially, it doesn't make any sense, really.
Well, I don't think that we should ban Muslims, strictly Muslims. But I do think that we should keep Muslim extremist terrorists out. There's a huge difference that the Democrats do not see. They want to let everybody under the sun in. I don't. I want to keep our country safe. I mean, common sense will tell you if there's somebody outside your house that wants to kill you, you don't open the door to them. You don't let them in. You keep them out. That's why we need what Trump is trying to do. Now, the Democrats are spinning this thing as a Muslim ban, and common sense tells me that it's not, because he's banning people from 7 countries of maybe about 50. Over 75% of the Muslim population over there from the Middle East are not banned. So how can anybody say that it's a Muslim ban? Unless they're just trying to scare people. They are trying to ban people from these 7 countries, which are known as terrorist centers. They spread terrorism. They support it. They spend their money to keep it going. That kind of thing. These are 7 countries that, by the way, President Obama and Congress deemed to be basically enemy countries, dangerous. We don't want them in here. And Trump is not banning Muslims. He is banning people from these 7 countries, regardless of their religious affiliation. So, while I do not think that we should ban Muslims, I do definitely feel that we should not allow a Trojan horse to kill us. And ISIS has said openly that they will infiltrate the refugees from Syria. So, the cure to keep them out, or not necessarily the total cure, but one of the big factors, is to obviously not let anybody from Syria into our country, regardless of their religious affiliation. They're from Syria, they're banned. And it's the same with these other 6 countries.
Nice spins, nice narratives, and a whole lot of naiveness here. No one on the Republican side is against immigration, legal immigration. The wall is to stop illegal immigration. And as far as the ban on the 7 countries, this is not a Muslim ban as has been spun so much as a ban of 7 failed states where vetting has been reported by our intelligence agencies under the Obama administration to be virtually impossible to do any background researches, because these are all failed states or near failed states. Now, you mentioned the Statue of Liberty. Give us your tired, give us your weak, give us your poor. It's awful funny how the same year that plaque was put on the Statue of Liberty was also the same year America banned immigration from China. Do your research. Um, I mean, everybody's painting the Republicans as anti immigrant, and that's not the case at all. Maybe anti illegal immigration. Um, these laws are not new. These laws have been on our books for years. And Obama, to date, has deported more illegal immigrants than any other president in history. Um, I think that you are a bit young and a bit naive, and just because you can't see how banning people coming from these 7 failed states are going to make any difference. Well, apparently, our intelligence agencies have under the Obama administration. So there is information that they have that you do not have and that you will never have. Um, so I definitely think you are a very naive young man, and to paint things in different ways because you don't understand them. Well, there are many of us here who maybe do understand a little better, that are a little older, and do understand just what is going on. And we don't need to bring people in to then build statistics of this many are dangerous. Sometimes you go off of common sense, something that has really been lacking in our world today, especially in the news media and their very, very sensationalized way that they report. It's not reporting of the news anymore. It's opinionated news. There's very little news reporting. It's all commentary, and which is causing a big problem for dividing this country. But yet, somehow, the journalists and the media companies are all making big money. They're selling advertisement. Their ratings are going up. They're getting more money for commercials. Who really is the evil ones here? Now, I'm not saying you are evil, but I think that the industry that you're in is really not a very good, what's the word I'm looking for here? The integrity is definitely lacking, maybe even in the negative. Anymore, people look at journalists even with less than they look at a lawyer. Remember all the lawyer jokes? Now there's actually media jokes, and how they're pretty much the most deplorable, despicable people on the planet. Now, I'm not picking on you. I'm just letting you know what is going on here in the real world and not in some made up utopian society of the newsroom. Can you come back to me and deny and say that news is not sensationalized? News isn't twisted in ways to get people riled up? Can you? Because my name's here. You can come to my inbox and talk anytime. I'd love to. But I definitely think that you are very naive.
First of all, for the uninitiated, there hasn't been a Muslim ban. There has not. Even if on Fox News, even they claim it's a Muslim ban. There has been a ban from several different countries. That has happened before in the United States. That also happens in many other countries. But there has not been a Muslim ban. Nobody's saying it. But there has. I read the executive order. In no place did it say Muzzies, sand personages, Muslims, whatever you wish to call them, whatever they wish to call themselves. It doesn't say anything. Now, there If you disagree with one of the nations on the ban and you think, well, this nation shouldn't be, that's a valid criticism if you wish to make it. But there is no Muzz ban. Now, here's the other thing. There are countries where, as American citizens, we're banned from going to. Do I think the country is right? I think the country is correct if it thinks it's in its national interest not to let me in. It's their land. I don't have a right to Canadian land. If the Canadians don't want me there, I don't get to go. If they don't want me to emigrate there, if they're done taking American citizens into Canada as immigrants, that's their prerogative. If the country of Tonga, if the country of Zimbabwe, or any other nation who is just as valid as a nation as we are, I don't believe in first world, second world. No, they're a nation. That's all that matters. Now, what does the nation want? Well, it doesn't want you people in. Okay, I'm one of the you people. I don't get to go. It's your house. It's your land. Anybody who thinks we shouldn't carefully consider who we let in, basically, why wouldn't you just let anybody into your house? And I support every country having immigration policies. I actually think the president of Mexico was saying they might be considering some immigration policies in Mexico. Good. Good. We can't just deport Muslims into Mexico. We can't just deport Argentinians into Mexico. We can't just deport. Mexico's a country. Cool. It's going to act like one. It's going to basically tell people they can't run through its house like Grand Central Station. I think it's good. I think every country sticking up for itself is a good thing. And out of that, then more people will have something to bring to the table and be able to say, you know what, we'd like to trade with you. We think what we have is mutually beneficial. What do you think? That's respect-worthy. Huge international alliances of independently voluntary states working together is fine. Maybe not a governing body that tells everybody what they can and can't do, think, speak, and whatever. But I'm not into governments anyway. But alliances. But you can only have an alliance if those people have the freedom and autonomy to do what they want with their own bodies and their own land. So they don't want to take in more Americans, whoever they happens to be. Well, it's their land. I don't have the right to go. Even if life gets really shitty here, I don't have the right to go. There isn't a Muslim ban. There is a ban against 7 different countries, and it's only a temporary ban. It's not even a real ban. Even though the federal government keeps calling it a ban. It's a temporary, what do they call that? Stay, or whatever. Like, the same people that are, quote, banned, unquote, right now, after the 90 days is up, get to come back in. Now, do I think it was properly implemented? No. Do I think there were mistakes? Yes. But there hasn't been a Muslim ban. So we're talking about something that hasn't happened. Any Malaysian Muslim wants to come here, they can come here. Any Saudi Arabian Muslim who thinks it's awesome to stone a woman to death when she's been raped, or throw gay people off of rooftops, or any of those, they can come. Moderate Muslims, extremist Muslims, they all can come over here. We still have way wide open, let's just give away the company store type attitude. Not every country does. A lot of countries are smarter than us about this. But there hasn't been a Muzz ban. And I wish even conservatives would be honest about that. There has not. There has been a ban. There has been a temporary stay on 7 nations. And that's not new. That's not, oh, this is the first time it's ever been done. And no, it's not. It's common. It's also common all across the globe. And there's countries where I'm not allowed to go because I'm an American, and there's countries I would not be allowed to immigrate to because I'm blind, and there's countries I would not be allowed to immigrate to because the field I work in is software, and they say, well, we don't want you coming here because we already have enough software people. That's their prerogative. That's their house. I don't have a right to barge into my neighbor's house.
Hi, Leo. I gotta admit, I'm a little surprised by your last post on this thread, being that you've stated many a time that you're not really a person who subscribes to political correctness, which I believe not calling it a Muslim ban isn't akin to, because I'll give you an example. Rudolph Giuliani, a White House advisor, says to the president, the president says to him, how can I ban Muslims? And Rudy Giuliani, who is on record, he said this on TV, said, oh, legally we can't do that. But here's what we can do, which will basically be the same thing, but just in legalese, right? So if I tell you, Leo, how do we ban Muslims? And you go, well, legally we can't do that, but here's how we can circumvent the law to essentially ban Muslims. And you then stand on that and say, but we're not really banning Muslims. You know, I think that's a form of the political correctness in which you said that you generally dislike. Maybe I'm reading into that wrong. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on what I just said, though.
I haven't listened to the other answers, and I think I have to give you permission to use what I say, so you can use what I say. Well, if there had been a Muslim ban, it might be unconstitutional or whatever you said it was, but there hasn't been one, and I really wish you guys, that are reporters, would, understand that. There hasn't even been a ban, necessarily. There has been a, hold it, we need to look at this for a minute because we might not be doing it right. That's what there's been. There hasn't been a ban on Muslims. Come on. I mean, really, y'all stop it. That's just a bunch of drama, and you know it's drama. I mean, y'all know what the order said. If you haven't read it, then you really shouldn't be reporting on it. But, you know, there's not been a ban. It's only for a certain amount of time. And check this out. It didn't even happen because the courts have overturned it. So, you're arguing some kind of moot point. I mean, I don't even understand why you're even going there, but no, there's not been a ban. Sorry.
Hey, Ricardo. Okay, that's fair, right? That's fair. You are. First of all, let's point out what you said, which should be pointed out more often. There is political correctness on the right. There is, and you were challenging that. Good for you. That's absolutely right on. But here's the thing. I'm not going to support Rudy Giuliani. Oh my God, you're not going to not going to catch me out doing that. Here's the thing. If it was a Muslim ban, why weren't they banning Saudi Arabia? Why weren't they banning Palestinians? Why weren't they banning... I mean, let's look at it this way. Neither Islam nor Christianity is persecuted. Christianity is 3.5 billion strong. That's not a persecuted religion. Islam is 1.1 billion strong. That's not a... and I don't know if you're, like me, one of the non-believing kind. We're a pretty small group. You and I, if you happen to be a atheist or agnostic or something like that, you're not really a participant or whatever. Small group. So if these huge infrastructural groups want to fight with each other and feed, well, maybe let them. I'm not going to support Rudy Boy. Rudy Tooty Fresh and Fruity, as he probably is. I wouldn't know, but I'm not going to do that. He exploited 9/11. He did a lot of bad things. But in terms of loopholes, both sides do that, dude. That's politics, man. You don't do it because you're an honest person. But politicians do it. And if you think that that's despicable, they do it, well, I'm with you. But if he wanted to ban Muslims, then Rudy Giuliani gave him some really bad advice, because he didn't even ban states that have Muslim governments, theocracies. So he did a terrible job of banning Muslims, if that was his aim. But it's not the first time Rudy Giuliani effed up, and if that's what he wanted to tell him to do, then... but he didn't. I mean, there are some very severe Muslim states where you would not want your daughter to go. And they're not on the ban. They're not. Now, again, the ones that are on the ban, I think, could be individually challenged. I think if people on the left want to come forth and say, you know what, you shouldn't be banning anybody from Syria, and here's why. You know what, you shouldn't be banning anyone. There's 7 countries, I forget who they are, besides Syria. But if you challenge that, please do. You should. But if Rudy Fresh and Fruity wanted to make it a Muslim ban, he did an awful job. I mean, it's not the first time a politician screwed up, but if he wanted to, I mean, there's some theocracies that get a pass to come into this country.
Hi, Leo. This, I don't want to get too speculative and conspiracy theory stuff. It's not really my thing. But, you said, why weren't other Muslim nations banned? And I'll just say that this is where, me personally, where I thought that this administration's, this president's business ventures may conflict with his duties to the office. Because many of the Muslim nations who aren't banned, he has financial interests in: Egypt, Morocco, the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia. So, yeah. And just to further expand on that point, Saudi Arabia, I mean, how many of the 9/11 hijackers were from Saudi Arabia? I mean, Saudi Arabia, by far, it's not even close, spend more money in training Muslim terrorists than any other nation, more than even Iran. So, I mean, but they are of some value to him personally, and maybe to the United States as a whole. I question that assumption, though, that many have, as well as the United Arab Emirates. So, I mean, there could be 1,000,001 reasons why certain groups are on the list and certain aren't. But I think what makes the 7 on the list more feasible, regardless of the threat that they might pose to the United States, is they have little in way of value to the United States and possibly to the President of the United States on a personal level as well. I mean, for example, Somalia. What does Somalia have to offer the United States militarily, socially, economically? Absolutely nothing. The same could be said for a couple other countries on that list. Even oil isn't as much of a big a factor when you have Saudi Arabia and the UAE in your good graces, or whatever. But like I said, I don't want to go too far into speculation. I'm just saying this to point out that, a Muslim ban can be I'll give an example. It's like when people say about, let's say there's this exclusive country club or something, and the population is primarily middle, white, rich men, right? Middle-aged men. And someone will say, wow, what a very bigoted, racist club. And they'll go, no. We have this one black guy here. And you go, well, I guess. So, just to say that there are some excluded from the bunch doesn't mean that it's primarily targeting Muslims from the ban.
Oh, Ricardo, you're not going to get conspiracy theory-ish, but I will. You're willing to give him more of a benefit of the doubt than I am. No, I totally agree with you. I completely think that his ventures, business interests. The problem is, so many politicians have them. Um, could make him a candidate for public flogging and hanging. I mean, this is just not cool at all. Ironically, it's the same thing conservatives complained about Hillary on the left, which it was, in my mind, accurate. Not because she's a woman, because so far as I know, Donnie Trump is not a woman, and I have that same complaint about him on the right. They're in Saudi Arabia's pants pocket and otherwise. You're right about that. I still do support the right of a people to self-determination. It's why I oppose colonialism. I think that we screwed up in many ways. Overreach, government stuff like that. It's not a racist thing. It's a power thing. A very few people benefit from it, and the rest of us pay for it. People like you, people like me pay for it. But I support the Kurds in Iraq, even though United Nations and the Bush administration and a whole bunch of other people didn't. They're a self-determining people who want to be themselves. I would support. I support Hong Kong. Is it Hong Kong? No, Taiwan, wanting to self-determine as its own people group. I would support. I support any group of people who wants to be sovereign, who wants to be its own kind, its own group. They have enough interests in common or whatever, and they want to be themselves. I think the Native American First Nations people, which, yeah, you could say I'm being politically correct, but actually I think that's a great word because they were the First Nations on the continent, have a right to self-determination. They also have a right not to be lied to and have pipelines putting poop in their water and other things that we've been doing we shouldn't be doing. I support all of that. But in so doing, there's an underlying principle. Self-determination. Native Americans shouldn't have to accept me on their property, on their land, if they don't want me there. In my opinion, they have a right to a border patrol on their lands. They have a right to be able to say, no, we don't want you. You can't come in, or you can only come in for a certain amount of time. I think that for all nations, all nationalities, all groups of people, I stand by that one. See, I'm not just a me first, but virtue signalers, and I'm not talking about you, but rich celebrities who want us to bring in more people are not going to do it themselves. They're not going to put them up in their houses. They're not going to put them in their neighborhoods. They're going to put them in yours. And they're going to put them in the poor person down the street's neighborhood who can't afford anything anyway. No, I support every nation, every people group on the planet being able to self-determine for itself and not have everybody else plowing in there, including me, plowing into their area and telling them and changing the laws to make it work for me because I want to just move in there and park my big fat white ass. No, I don't support any of that. People have the right to that. But that people includes us because of the principle of the thing.
So I've been listening to some of the answers, and someone had said that, there hasn't been a ban, but people have already been banned from coming here. Like, Ruby, can you move your tail, please? Like, I know people who are, trying to come here just to visit, and they can't. The customs people, they turn them back around, they deport them right back to their own country. And also people who are American citizens, by the way, who are Muslim, they go overseas to visit, and they can't come back. even though they have American passport, they're American citizen, but because they're Muslim, they can't come back. And I've known quite a few people who've had this happen. So even though it might not be a said law right now, but it's already, people, places are already taking into effect, which is the sad part. And just the thought of actually just thinking about it, that's really scary, even if someone has put it to thought and said, why shouldn't we do this? Now, that's scary in itself, so why would you even think about that? So anyway, even though it's not technically a ban, but it's being in effect in many places already.
Oh, Leo, Christians are persecuted. Absolutely, they are. There are countries in which if you are Christian, you are killed. Now, if that's not persecution, what is?
Yeah, I think it's un-American, and I think it's also inhumane because we are oppressing people that are already oppressed and that they're fleeing persecution, but yet we're giving them more of that. The people that the administration is banning are refugees. We cannot assume that the people that are coming in are terrorists. Already, as it stands, the United States has the most extensive vetting process. I think it may take up to 2 years for a refugee to access the country. So I think the security argument is kind of used by the government to divide. So it's basically like the us versus them, and fear them and we are the victim sort of thing. And if it was really about terrorism, one of the things that I have noticed is that the United States should not just focus on terrorism outside. I think they should also focus on terrorism inside, because it would be wrong to just say that we do not have terrorists in this country already living here. So if it was really about security and terrorism, they should be paying attention to both sides. And I'm not saying the Muslims are terrorists, they're not. When I'm saying there could be terrorists living here in this country, I'm also referring to white people or to people of other ethnicities / races, whatever. Not just Muslims. And there are people that say that it is not a Muslim ban, but I really think it is, because first off, if we compare the treatment that a Christian receives versus a Muslim's, the Muslim in the United States definitely gets treated worse than a Christian. And I think I heard Trump on one of his interviews, I don't know how accurate this is, but he actually stated Christians, when it came to the refugee admissions, Christians and other persecuted minorities would get preferential treatment over Muslims. So, yeah, it definitely sounds like a Muslim ban to me, and it is un-American. But at the same time, it doesn't surprise me, since America has a tendency of excluding the undesirables.
Mandy, when the executive order was overturned by the appeals court, they let those people come here. So I don't know what that's all about. But when the order was overturned, and even before that, they let green card people come back in. So I don't know what's going on with that, but I will say that that's not exactly true. They are letting them in because they have to.
I wanted to add two more things. One is the comment the poster made about this is going to incite more hate towards us. Well, one of the reasons why I called you naive is apparently you don't know that ISIS and Al Qaeda both have people in their propaganda market that take anything the United States does and the UK and twists it to a insult or assault on Muslims. So it doesn't matter what we do, they will twist it into an assault on Muslims. You're in the news media. You, of all people, should know this. This is not some made up fact. This is a fact. And as far as what Rudolph Giuliani had said, I heard him with my own ears. And he was to have this written up in a way that it could not be labeled as a Muslim ban because it wasn't. Trump wanted these 7 countries to have a temporary halt from anyone coming until we can figure out a better way or make sure that the vetting process was sufficient beings. Comey, head of the FBI, and I can't remember the guy's name, head of the CIA and the DIA, all had said, we don't have any sure way of vetting these people because they're from failed states. So, Giuliani's words, he should have spoke it better. I can't deny that. But it was to be written in a way that it could not be identified as a Muslim ban because it wasn't a Muslim ban. We're talking about 7 states out of, what is it? I think it's 53 or maybe 54 Muslim countries on the planet. And this is 7. So the math alone should tell anyone who has common sense, that it's not a Muslim ban. I mean, come on. Like I said in my last reply to this, where's the common sense? Jesus. But yeah, buddy, no matter what we do, it will be twisted to an assault on Muslims. So it don't matter. But anyway, just another thing I forgot to add.
Okay. First off, it's not a full-on ban on all Muslims. It is a specific ban that targets 7 Muslim-majority countries who are known for having issues with terrorism. Okay, the reason this is going on, the reason this ban is in place, is because of the fact that these people were trying to keep out the bad. And I'm not saying that all of them are bad. I'm just saying that, with this ban going on, it affects 7 Muslim majority countries who have known issues with terrorist organizations being able to run rampant there. That's who we're trying to keep out, is people who want to destroy everything for everybody else. We're not trying to keep out every single one of them. We're trying to keep out those from known problem countries that, pretty much won't do anything about the problems they have.
You're forgetting one point, sir. It does not say, give us your terrorists. That it does not say. And the sooner that liberals get this through their heads and understand that this is to prevent terrorists from coming in from so-called ISIS states, and where ISIS has a foothold, then you'll be on the right track. But until you get that through your head, sir, you're going to probably rue the day that you put this question up, because of the simple fact that eventually one of these days, if you look at the, and I'm sorry, no, I'm not sorry, if you look at all, and I do mean what it says in the Quran, Islam is not the religion of peace. It is a religion of submission. And one of these days when someone walks up to you and says, take on Islam or die, what will you do? Will you become a good Muslim? Will you submit? Or will you be a martyr and die? You need to make up your mind and quit putting crap up here that is really not worth it. And the reason why it's not worth it is because you're spreading false propaganda. Because Islam is not the religion of peace. Now granted, there may be some good folks who are Muslim, and I know for a fact there are. I help a few out every day. But by and large, if you look at what the Quran says, the Quran is a document that was written by Muhammad, and the main reason why, and if you go and you look this up, you'll find this out. It was put up so that he could spread his sick, twisted version of a religion. Muhammad was a psychopath, and he had mental issues. And not only that, now, with me saying that also, I take issue with a lot of things it says in the Bible, so I'm an equal opportunity offender here, okay? And so if you go and you look at all of this, and you take a very good look, you will see that the main reason why, for example, Muhammad and the book and the Quran cite and call anyone other than themselves infidels is because of the simple fact that, first of all, Muhammad went and talked to the Jews and tried to get the Jews to convert. And Jewish people said, "No way. We're not doing that." And so after a long time of trying, he dropped his kind way of doing things, and then he decided to then go on a blood-letting, murderous path. If you didn't submit to Islam, then you died. And that is the same way it is in these terrorist countries. And like I said, the sooner that you realize that this is possibly going to happen, the better off you're going to be. Now, with that also said, I told you I'm an equal opportunity offender here. And I'll take the Bible and white Christians to task on this one. And where were all of you good people back that don't want this ban when white people were killing my people, my Sioux people? Where were you in 1890 when the so-called massacre at Wounded Knee happened? Most of those people that were killed then were women and little children who didn't have a chance to go anywhere. Granted, I do not hold you responsible for that, but I want to know where people with your thoughts were at that time. We did not ask white people to come over here. They came over here because they supposedly wanted freedom of and from religion. They were tired of what the Church of England was doing, and they wanted to worship supposedly in the way they wanted to. Well, those 1607 people would have never made it if we did not help them. So, I would urge you to rethink your idea. As far as I'm concerned, you are and your people before you are terrorists because they came and slaughtered my people. Okay? So you're no more than a terrorist too, sir. Have a good day.
Two other points I want to make. One is I find it laughable that you use Steve Jobs in this equation because Steve Jobs hated his real father. In fact, Steve Jobs knew his real father before he knew he was his real father. And after he found out and learned of this, he never let his real father know that he was even his son. So I find that kind of funny that you use that. The other thing is statistics. The one statistic I don't ever hear mentioned on this app or even in the news is there were over 550 terrorist attempts that were stopped, and these people were actually prosecuted and convicted in this country, and over 50% of that number, over 50%, were from other countries. Now, I don't know which other countries, but what kind of statistics do you need to see? Do you need to let them in, and knowing that our intelligence agencies have said ISIS is going to infiltrate this group, do you need to see people actually dead so you have statistics and then change your mind when there's no way of finding them and getting them out? Like I said, common sense. You always err to the side of caution. The first people our government is obligated to are its United States citizens. People from other countries do not have the rights that us citizens do. That's why they go through an immigration process. So again, no one, listen to me if you don't hear me, no one is against immigration. But the majority of the people are against illegal immigration. But I forgot to mention those two things in my other two replies.
Well, Mandy, I think there were some mistakes made in the travel stoppage, for lack of a better term. Those who should legally be here should have been allowed to come back into the country. That's the only thing I think that they screwed up in. If you've got a legitimate green card or if you are a U.S. citizen, you should have been allowed to come back in. However, they were not stopped because they were Muslim. You're missing the point there. Muslim had nothing to do with it. It's where they were coming from that mattered. They were coming from these 7 countries from which we were not receiving anybody into our country. It had nothing to do with them being Muslim. And nowhere in Donald Trump's executive order did it say Muslim. It was only from these 7 countries. Nobody could come from these 7 countries at that time. And they put it on suddenly so that the terrorists could not jump the gun and get in before the stoppage took effect. Now that I think they should do. Because sure as heck, if the terrorists know that starting next Monday nobody can come in here from these countries, they're going to flood us from these countries before next Monday. So that part they were right in doing. A surprise attack is no good if the surprise is let out. If it's not a surprise. The same comes with a travel ban, or whatever the case may be. In order for it to be effective, it has to start now, no warning. That's it. That way they cannot take advantage of what is going to happen before it does. You know, speaking of how the Taliban and ISIS will take everything and twist it against us, this is one of the major reasons why the press is so dangerous. This is one of the reasons why Trump will have a problem being the president that he could be. He might have a problem getting along with foreign countries if they are reading the press. Because the press have very openly been against him from day one. They have twisted everything that he says to meet their agendas or their political left-wing views. Everything that Trump does is bad, according to the majority of the media. And when people around the world read all of this bad stuff, they're not going to want to work with such a person. Common sense would tell them not to if they believed what they read in our press, our media. If he does anything good, it might be mentioned in a slight little blurb back there somewhere in the back issues or back sections, or it might be very lightly commented on. But if he makes a mistake, even in a number, like if he says 48% when it's actually 45%, it's headline news that he doesn't know what he's talking about. They have been against Trump all the way, and they continued to do so. If you can find a recording of yesterday's press conference, listen to it with an open mind. A lot of what he said in that press conference is absolutely true. Now, maybe some of his figures were not true. Maybe he's not looking at a few things right. But the majority of what he said against the press is absolutely 100% correct. It is honest. He figures the heck with political correctness. He's going to say it like it is. And he did. Now, the press don't like that, but he's right. Look at how President Obama was treated compared to how President Trump is being treated. There are some people that are actually calling for impeachment already, and he hasn't even been in for a month. Compare that with how much damage Obama did to our country, and he wasn't impeached, nowhere near it. Look at how he was treated in the campaigns compared to how Hillary Clinton was treated in the campaigns. They were all for her and all against him, or at least 99% of them were. There is a reason why the press is thought of in such low esteem. It's because they deserve it. It's because of their obvious left-wing bias. It sticks out like a sore thumb to the point where you don't even hardly have to look at it or look for it. It's right there. Some of the TV media, CNN in particular, they will have a program where they'll have 8 guests and they are all left-wing. No right-wing at all, not even in the middle. That is not balanced. I will give Fox News credit. Although they are primarily for the right wing, they do give the opinions of the left wing as well. There's a reason why they are rated number 1 on cable news. It's because they do not do what CNN does. They are more fair. They are more balanced. And people who watch cable news know it. So I think it's time that the media straighten up and report the news as it is. Don't slant it to fit your political agendas. Don't slant it to fit your opinions. Don't state your opinions as if they were news fact. Report it as is, good, bad, or otherwise, and leave it at that, regardless of who it is about. I think that if I were to own a news publication, I would demand this of my reporters. You be balanced or you be gone. I will not have someone who is totally left or who is totally right, who slants their reporting to show that. You report it as is, you report it accurately and honestly, regardless of who you're reporting about. That would be my number 1 criteria. If you work for me as a reporter, you're going to be honest or you're not going to work for me, period. I don't care who you are. And if the word gets around that the news printed in my publication is accurate and fair, I'm going to get the reputation for being that way, and I will become one of the most popular news sources because I can be trusted. Today's media cannot be trusted because of their bias.
Hi, I guess my response here is directed towards Will Kittle. And I have not read the Quran in its entirety, but nor have I read the Bible, to be fair. But I will say this, because I'll just talk about what I do know. If we exclude 9/11, or take the time from September 12th, 2001 till now, there have been far more acts of Christian terrorism or terrorist acts portrayed by Christians than Muslims in the United States. Um, Historically speaking, um, you know, I mean, look at what happened in Ireland and England for what, 100 years, picking up specifically in the 60s through the early 90s. I mean, people were blowing up little kids in England and in Ireland. I mean, what? All I'll say is this: scriptures might preach peace or might preach war, but it's still up to the people of those faiths to decide what parts of scripture they want to take to heart and which ones they don't. Um, because essentially, when we talk about terrorism or people who do bad things or what one might consider to be bad things in the name of religion, you're basically using your a faith system to justify your own actions. Anyone can do it. Anyone. Seriously. So if you can use a faith-based system to justify the good you do, then conversely, there can be people who use that same exact book that you believe in to justify the ill that they do. Um, and as far as, safeguarding America by banning these countries, uh, I think it's short sighted, and in the end, it will probably do more harm than good. But I'd just like to parallel it by saying this too. It's easier to condemn people for something when you have no real experience with them or know what they're about, and ultimately it doesn't affect you. So you're saying this ban should be done because it's for the greater good of the country. And I'll even say you might be right. I don't think you are, but you could be. But I would like to parallel it with this. I've heard you, Will Kiddo, on this app earlier this week, even, or it might have been last week, talking about the pipelines, the Dakota pipeline and the Keystone pipeline projects, and how you feel that they are terrible because they're going to poison your people. And I wholeheartedly agree with you. And by your people, I'm assuming that you mean a Native American tribe. You could correct me if I'm wrong on that point. But what if I said to you, that doesn't affect me, and sure, some people might die or be inconvenienced where that pipeline runs through, but for Americans as a whole, it will create more jobs. We can make more money off that oil. We'll cut down on shipping costs, so on and so forth. So for the majority of Americans, it'll be in our favor. Will I be wrong in that assumption? Probably not. More people probably will be benefit from it than those will be harmed. But I'm looking beyond the bigger picture to say, is your potential suffering, worth me, spending 3 cents less on gas? No.
Yes, it would, because what happens if you have Muslims that are American Muslims? You can't very well ask them to leave their own home country or not practice their religion in the country. And Muslims, just because someone is a Muslim does not mean they are a terrorist. And things of that nature. And in this country, there should be freedom of religion.
How would banning Muslims be possible? How does that work? Because how do you prove that it's a Muslim that you're banning? And this is a question for people on either side. How do you ban a Muslim? Even the pork test that used to be employed against the Jews in the UK and other countries 100 years ago doesn't even work because there are Christians. Well, it worked on the Jewish people at that time because they weren't Middle Eastern. But if you're going to basically say, okay, we're going to look at Middle Eastern people, let's say you gave a pork test. Here's some bacon, eat some bacon and prove you're not a Muslim. That doesn't even work because there are Christians from the Middle East that don't eat pork. What if you get a Jewish person that is of Middle Eastern heritage? Not all of them, not all Jews are European. Great many of them now, but all of the Israelis that were there before when it was Palestine are descendants of the poor people that the Romans left behind. They're the actual originals. What about them? How would anybody prove who was Muslim? That just, you can't, whoever the you happens to be. You can't. I mean, somebody has to declare themselves to you as a Muslim. How would you prove that they were? Because if you do the pork thing, well, that doesn't work because there's Christians from over there that will not eat pork.
You know, going back to the root issue here, as to the, quote, Muslim ban. Okay, like I had said before, it's not a ban on people just because they are Muslim. It's a ban on people from from countries with known problems who have also been known to harbor terrorists, and that's why they're being banned. Okay, do you not think that, say, for example, back in World War II, Japan and Germany, do you guys think that, those of you that say it's a terrible idea, do you guys think that people from, say, Japan or Germany back in World War II were allowed to come into this country while the war was going on? I'm pretty sure that wasn't the case. Okay, because you're allowing somebody who at the time wanted to stir all this crap with the United States. Okay, that would have been to allow all of them into this country would have seriously been national suicide. Okay, considering back in World War II, Japan attacked Pearl Harbor. Okay, so basically what all these people are saying as to, oh, we should just let them in. They should just be allowed to come in no matter what. Okay, something you have to consider is the terrorists there that they are having these issues with, that they're not really in control of, that are basically running amok through these 7 countries that are on this ban list, as it were. Okay, they want to destroy anybody that doesn't agree with them. Okay, so that would essentially be like us loading playing Russian roulette, allowing everybody to come in here, no matter what. Don't subject them to any process, any of that stuff. That would basically be the equivalent of us playing Russian roulette, spinning the chamber around in the revolver, and just hoping against all odds we don't end up taking the one bullet in the chamber. That's extremely stupid. It would be an extraordinarily dumb move to make. And that's just on the general principle of, okay, these terrorists that want to come in here, these ISIS fighters, all that stuff there, they want to come into the United States of America for the sole purpose of destroying us. It's not a ban on people because of what they believe. It's a ban on people who want to destroy us, that Barack and Hillary, well, let's face it, Hillary would have just been 8 more years of the same thing, and it would have eventually spiraled. It would have been 8 years of the same thing, causing America to spiral even further and further down the rabbit hole. And I'm not just seeing this because I disagree with those two politically. I'm seeing this because of simple, common sense things that they utterly failed to take the hint on. And you know what? I don't agree with Trump on a few issues. However, one thing I will say is that, yes, while some of the things he says or does go against any sort of logic, he's also not one to play games or mince words about any particular situation as it relates to America. He sees something that's screwed up, like indeed this whole situation is, and he calls it. I think it's about damn time we had somebody that does not care how other people perceive him, but wants to do things in the best interests of the United States citizens. And I'm just going to say one more thing before I close here. If somebody knocked on my door, had their machete or whatever in their hand, and told me, all right, Clinton, you can either convert to Islam or die. Sorry, but I'm not going to be converting. I know who my God is. I know who my Lord and Savior is. So, no. I would tell them, well, you may be able to kill the body, but I'm not afraid of you clowns. If they're gonna sit there and say they're gonna kill me because I won't renounce my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, it's not, no. I'm going to renounce their system of control, trying to beat everybody into submission, all that. Because honestly, it's a lot more sensible to have fear of somebody who can destroy your soul and not just your body. Yeah, I might take a bunch of flack on this, but honestly, bring it on. Bring it on. Because I'm not gonna sugarcoat anything myself. Another thing, okay, look at all the laws, all the immigration laws and stuff like that to get a visa or whatever they want you to have, even if you're just visiting one of these countries, one of these Arab countries in the Middle East. Okay, take for example Saudi Arabia. They will not allow a woman into the country unless said woman is accompanied by a male companion. Okay, just different things like that, where they have such strict laws as to, okay, well, if you're gonna come into our country, then and you're a woman, for example, well, you must have your face covered at all times in public. Oh, and by the way, if you're even gonna visit, well, if you're a lady, well, we're not gonna allow you into the country unless you're accompanied by a man. We don't have any of that stuff here in the United States. We don't, there's none of that goes on here. But what this seems to boil down to is, okay, nobody's doing research on how all these other countries' immigration policies are, all that. Even if you're going to so much as visit over there. But, well, we can't exclude certain people from the United States, even though even though they want to destroy everything America stands for, or at least should stand for. Yeah, we can't exclude people that want to destroy us. No, just let them in. They're not going to do anything as long as we agree with them. That's a load of bull. And regarding the mainstream media, or no, scratch that. The lamestream media, because that's exactly what they are. They are so biased to further their own ends. They want to spin things their own way. And that's really not a good thing to be doing. Even over the past, okay, let's go back to pre 9/11. Okay, even 17 years ago, back in 2000, and I can say this because I remember as a 12-year-old kid, watching TV with my dad, for example, and they, for the most part, all these major news outlets and all that seemed to be pretty straight with whatever issues were going on. It wasn't until this post 9/11 era we're in now where, we can't say certain things because it's not politically correct, for instance. Oh, we can't say certain things that would run the risk of offending certain people because now, with our websites and everything like that, we're all over the world. No. That's not cool. On so many different levels, that's not cool. And personally, I've noticed that ever since 2008, 2009, around that time frame, there has been a steady decline in how all these network news agencies operate. CNN, for example. Well, I think CNN's pretty much lost whatever credibility they had left. But that's just me. And it's not just CNN. It's also CBS, ABC, NBC. They all do it. They all put their own... They all go by the same agenda as to, oh no, we can't be straight up with how certain issues are going, all that. We need to, we need to control what gets released. It's like this song by John Mayer, Waiting on the World to Change. There's a particular line in that song that specifically says along the lines of, when you trust the information on your TV from these news channels, all that, okay, they can tell you they can tell you their own spin on things. And, well, when they own the information, they can turn around and bend it and twist it all they want. And that's exactly what's going on, even more so now. It's sick. It is flat out sick and wrong.
Let's put blame where blame belongs. This is a temporary hold on these 7 countries. But Islamic extremists waged war on us. And because of that, we have to be careful on who we allow in. So is it our fault that we are forced into a safety situation, or is it the extreme Islamic terrorists' fault for waging war? And now all these other people have to be held up on a immigration or a entry to our country and other countries. So whose fault really is it, if you look at it that way? Again, I would place the blame on the extreme Islamic terrorists. Their actions caused this. Their action caused our reaction. So, again, anybody who sees this as a ban on Muslims clearly isn't looking at this with wide open eyes. And it would be wrong to ban Muslims for Muslim sake. Absolutely. But it's not wrong to put this temporary hold on 7 countries that our intelligence agencies have already identified as being infiltrated by these extremists. So, there you go. There's where the blame is.
Of course it's un-American, but you know how original Americans were. They only wanted to bring people over here they needed, or take from people they wanted from. But to keep other people out, what good of a job is that going to do? Also, if you wanted to ban Americans, there wouldn't be a lot of people here, because mostly everybody here is not American. So, yikes. Why don't we just all go back to where we came from? It's like, would banning assholes be American? Or banning bitches, would that be American? Because there's a lot of assholes and bitches around here. But they're still allowed here. We just need to create an asshole land. Put all the assholes and bitches there. And ban them.
Any individual due to their religion is an American. I think if people come here to this country the legal way, like everybody else, or they are receiving some assistance because of political injustice or religious persecution, those people are welcome or have been always welcome to the United States. And in most cases, the people who come to this country, immigrants people, tend to join the military, tend to be more active in their community more than the average American person who's born in this country. So they are more into believing in this country, in the constitution of this country, and they are more Americans than the so-called Americans who are born here. So I have no problems if anybody wants to come to this country, but they do it the legal way. But at the same time, I don't believe that we should go and, according to the latest news thing that I heard, is send the National Guard to collect immigrants and deport them. So what is going to be next? Putting a concentration camp like we did to the Japanese people and to some Italians and Germans during World War II? Would people tolerate that? After all, it's only probably what? Well, we need to do this to protect ourselves, so we need to put them in there, but we'll take care of them. So where it's going to go next? That is something that Germany did, if I recall my history. And look what happened to them. Pretty soon they have a nice big ovens, gas things, and several million Jewish people. Just why? Because they were Jewish. After all, who cares, right? Same thing. Muslims, who cares? They're just Muslims. And I consider myself a Christian, so those of us who are true Christians don't want that kind of thing to happen. Those people who call themselves Christians and say, sure, we need to protect ourselves, I don't call them Christians, for what it's worth. This is me, Roger Fiala from Chicago, Illinois.
I agree with Tim about being careful about who you let into the country. But my thing is, were we not careful before? To the fact that no terrorist act has been brought up, that's been committed by anyone who has come from this nation, these 7 nations in the United States, that would make me believe that what was already done has been working. And, about Islamic extremists, I also agree with that. But, gotta keep in mind, you don't have to be from any country to become an extremist. And you don't have to be from any place to become Muslim or follow Islam. I mean, doesn't matter what color you are or what your cultural background is, you could convert to Islam and become a extremist, just like you can convert to Judaism and become an extremist, or to Christianity and become an extremist, or be all those things already. I guess here's my thing. It's easy to point at those countries and go, oh, that's where ISIS has strongholds, so yeah, that's what that is. But I look at it and I go, but hold on. If we look at some of the attacks that has happened in other parts of the world, they weren't necessarily from those places at all. They're often from other places or from the nation where the attack happened, in Europe or whatever, or even here in the United States, like the San Bernardino people. And they became radicalized sitting right there in their living rooms. So I'm all for what you're saying in spirit. My point is, how will this hold? And I use that word in air quotes, Tim, because I'm like, come on, really? You don't believe that it's just a way of... Put it like this. It's easy to start something, but it's harder to stop something. So once a ban is in place, or a hold can easily be turned into a ban. But it's harder to turn a ban into a hold, right? So I mean, I think we're really talking about a case of semantics here, because if you, at least if you believe Rudy Giuliani, Donald Trump asked for a ban. A ban. At least that's what Rudy Giuliani said. Maybe he's exaggerating. Could be. I don't know. So, if someone asks for a ban, and then they go, we can't do it that way. We have to find a legal way to do what you want to do, right? So why should we believe that this is just going to be temporary? Like, what have you seen in his manners, in his mannerisms, or in anything he said that makes you think this would just be a temporary thing? Like I said, if you're going to say it's to, I don't know, beefing up, extreme vetting. That's the term used. Extreme vetting. I mean, besides like pulling people's toenails out and their fingernails out, I mean, how extreme do we want people to be vetted? It already takes up to 2 years for these people to even get a sniff of entering the country. In the last 7 years, how many people have been let in? I don't know. 15, 20,000, maybe 30,000 in 8 years. That's really not a lot of people in the big scheme of things. So, I mean, when we say vetting, extreme vetting, what are we really talking about here? I don't know.
No one's banned Muslims. I think you need to educate yourself some more.
Hi, Bryce. No government official is saying that someone, to use your word, should be banned from entering the USA. The only person I'm hearing saying a Muslim should be banned is you.